Good evening and welcome back to the Today with Tally podcast. Folks, we have a great show in store for you today. We will be joined by Scott Fredenburg, the Nebraska native, the retired U.S. Army Sergeant First Class, and the founder of Ruck-It Up, 4Warriors. But first,
hello, friends, and welcome to another exciting episode of Today with Tally. The mission and goal of this podcast is to bring an engaging conversation that will add value to the lives of everyday people. We will inspire, encourage, educate, and tell the stories of America's finest men and women in an effort to motivate you to live your life to its fullest potential. Be sure to follow us on social media and search Today with Tally. Be sure to subscribe, follow, and share the program as well. Ladies and gentlemen, your host of the evening, Mr. Brian Tally.
A tremendous Tuesday to everybody out there listening. We sincerely appreciate everybody's listenership. We are growing this program bigger and bigger every single day because of guests like our next one, Mr. Scott Fredenburg. This guy, 24 years of honorable service in the U.S. Army, retired as a Sergeant First Class. And folks, he's not done yet. He is in Lincoln, Nebraska. He's working in unison with a bunch of different veteran organizations out there to really prevent veteran suicide and really increase the quality of life of all the veterans and first responders in his area. And you don't hear a lot of veteran groups coming out of Nebraska. You know, it's a smaller state, you know, pretty much all the population's on the far east side there between Omaha and Lincoln. But this Lincoln, Nebraska native is out there doing big things with Ruck-It Up 4Warriors. And with that, I'm honored to be joined by Scott Fredenburg. How are you, sir?
Hey, good, Brian. How are you doing?
Another day, another day. You know, I'm exhausted. I couldn't sleep last night. I've got something planned for this evening that I'm very excited for after the show. And if it all works out, I'll be able to share it because I can't share it yet because I'm superstitious. So if it all works out according to plan, I'm going to have a damn good day.
There you go.
and that's why I couldn't sleep last night, man. I'm too giddy. Well, that and I got pain too, but that's another story.
Yeah.
So Mr. Fredenburg, you are in Lincoln, Nebraska. Man, are you a big Cornhusker fan?
Huge. I'm been a season ticket holder for probably about the last 6 years or so. We were on the wait list for about 3 or 4 years before that. Actually been going to every game now for about 10 years because my wife bought tickets from one of her co-workers who had season tickets as well. So really excited about this upcoming season and our new coach, Matt Rule. So ready to go.
Yeah. You know, we probably crossed paths sometime. I used to go to a lot of Cornhusker games when I lived in Colorado. I take the RV out there. And my son, when he was a lot younger, he's 21 now. And we did a lot of games out there. Probably been to at least a dozen in Lincoln and then a few in, in Boulder when they were playing the Buffs. And they got a new coach too, prime time.
Oh, yeah.
It should be a pretty fun college football season. I'm definitely looking forward to it, man. And, and I love Runza, right? You guys still got the Runzas out there? That's kind of like the Whataburger in Texas.
That's like a have to have when you come to a game. Either that or Valentino's Pizza.
Yeah, I got a Runza and a Bunza. Yeah, that's what I like to call it. Good old, the best Hot Pockets you'll ever have.
Yep.
So, you are, like I had mentioned, a native of Lincoln, Nebraska. What inspired you to graduate high school and then move on and join the U.S. Army?
Okay, so my military career, I guess, me thinking of starting to join the military started back actually when I was maybe a freshman, sophomore in high school. Mm-hmm. My father, he passed away when he was 61. He was a Marine Corps veteran, did a couple tours in Vietnam. And I always wanted to join the Marine Corps, follow his footsteps. But come to find out after he passed away, the reason I didn't join the Marine Corps is because he did all he could to push me away from the Corps. because of his experiences during Vietnam. So my older brother graduated 2 years before me, and he joined the Army. He joined his first assignment was airborne school. He went to 82nd Airborne after he finished airborne school. So I kind of wanted to follow his footsteps. I wanted to try to see if I could go airborne as well, but I was colorblind, so they did not let me jump out of planes or anything like that. So I went to next option. I was like, oh well, what am I gonna do? So went to crane operator school.
Mm-hmm.
So I joined in 1990, straight out of high school. Graduated in May, and then went to basic training in July. Signed up, like I say, as a crane operator. Did 2.5 years, close to 3 years of active duty. And during that whole time, our cranes were deadlined. So my active duty enlistment ended, and my initial contract was supposed to be a 3 years active and 3 years reserve. So I went into the reserves after that, and eventually decided to go to military police school, which I did as a reservist in 1996. So
Very cool. Yeah, you would end up serving 24 total years, honorable service. That would take you, like you said, from being a crane operator, assigned to engineer units in Camp Humphreys, Korea, and then on to Fort Knox in Kentucky, MP school. Now, what was MP school like?
Well, it was okay. So on the reserve side, we didn't go to the active duty school. We went to a reserve school to where they have it phased out to where you do on your weekend drills, you do like classroom training for, I think it is 6 months worth of classroom training on your weekend drills for your phase one. And then you go phase two, which is a condensed version to where you do, I think it was another 3 weeks I did at Fort Bliss in Texas during the summer of 1996 there. So it was not bad. It was pretty easy. It was, yeah, just your MP stuff. You learned everything from your law and order. You learned your MP patrols and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
You learned your mission dealing with detainees, because MPs were considered multi-purpose, so you have to learn. That's what MP stands for. I don't know if you knew that or not. Probably heard it throughout the time. So you got to be able to adapt to different varieties of potential combat type of missions and stuff like that. So
Sure. Now, in 2000, you would head on over to Kosovo. What was going on in Kosovo in 2000 at the Bond Steel Detention Facility?
okay, so there's a war ongoing between Albania and Serbia and the former Yugoslavia area there. So Camp Bond Steel, the detention facility there, housed we had probably about anywhere from 50 to 100 of each Albanian and Serbian prisoners of war based off of their conflict they had. So we ran the detention facility, and we were in charge of, basically it was like their jail as far as that goes. So had all sorts of individuals who were being held there for war crimes from both of those countries. So yeah, it was about a 9-month mission is what we had. So we worked overnight shift work or daytime shift work.
What were your encounters and your experiences like when you were dealing with these prisoners?
I think your biggest thing is your language barrier is, you have to, before, when we went through training prior to going over there, we took a mini type of language course to give us the basics of their language. Counters with them though, you had one side, the Serbians, they thought to me, I think they thought they were a little more hardcore than the Albanians were, and Albanians, I don't know. It's so long ago. I tell you what,
Mm,
it was just interesting. It was interesting knowing that you have to deal with two separate sides who are at war with each other, and you had to keep them separate. You had to keep that in mind when you're working security within the wires at the facility. Always making sure that you were, you know, being conscious of your, you know, intel and things like that, and what could
sure.
be done. So,
Sure. Now, that would last for 9 months. Take us into 2001. We all know what happened, in 2001. And everything has changed and nothing has ever been the same since, especially when it comes to terrorism. That really still continues on today. And that it will, I think, will completely reignite, and we will find ourselves in another conflict, unfortunately, because that's just the way it all works out, especially after this botched 20-year war in Afghanistan. The way that we pulled out of there, and it was just unlike anything that I have never witnessed, or you, or really anybody else. And all it's going to do is it's going to, again, it's going to reignite that match, if you will, when we were so close to really accomplishing the mission in Afghanistan and Iraq. Now, in 2003 and 2004, you would find yourself in Iraq, and then you would also find yourself back in Iraq in 2008. What were your experiences like when you were serving in a combat role overseas?
so experience combat role overseas. Um, it's you got to be on your toes. I was in at that time 2003, 2004 during my first Iraq tour. We're at Camp Bucca, Iraq, and we basically it was shortly after the ground war started, and our mission there was base security patrols outside the wire. Um, we ran one really fun part of our mission. Um, you know how they had the deck of cards when the war started, as far as that goes,
Yeah. Yep.
all the high value targets and things like that. So
Mm-hmm.
there was an interrogation facility set up at our camp in Camp Bucca, and we would oversee the intel, interrogations and stuff like that. That was kind of neat to see. Just that process that the military intelligence uses when they run their interviews with these individuals, as far as that goes. So it's an experience. You had to make sure me as a NCO at the time, I was a E5, and I think, or was I E5 or E6? So either sergeant or staff sergeant at the time. I think I was still a sergeant at the time during that first Iraq tour. So I did have responsibility. I was sergeant of the guard for for about half that tour, as far as that went. So just basically situational awareness and overall security, not breaking your OPSEC procedures, as far as that goes.
Describe what a military police patrol is in combat.
So basically, military police patrols, you could do a couple of things. You could do escorts, where you're escorting different missions to places. Is basically if they're bringing any type of goods, like food, water, supplies, or anything from one base to another, you're going to be their security patrol, as far as that goes. You have your gunner vehicles sectioned out, different portions of the convoy, as far as that goes. Or else it could just be your inside and outside the wire type of security, to make sure that you're checking the perimeters to make sure that there's no, IED set up and things like that, and specific routes or whatnot. You are going out into the community there and making sure that there's a port that was close by us. You're making sure that that port is secure, as far as that goes, to make sure that there's, no potential enemy enemy troops out there, blocking roads and whatnot. So,
yeah, I got a question for you, and you could answer it anyway, but I think it's a question that needs to be asked. You served an honorable career, 24 years. You would end up doing several deployments to Iraq. Again, filling a combat role on this 20-year war on terror. The bloodshed that has been spilled from our military men and women is something that can never be forgotten. And all the Gold Star families out there that have, have their life forever changed because of the service and the sacrifice of our fallen. And then we have the folks like you that come home, and a lot of veterans bring that war back home with them. We have veteran suicide is on the rise and is an alarming epidemic in this country. And, it's folks like you and other nonprofits that are out there that are doing the hard work of engaging with veterans that need help, and engaging with veterans to give them that hand up, not that hand out, to get them out of their comfort zones, to get them back into society in a way where they can, be, a contributor again, and leaving that anxiety and that, and that depression and those moments of self-isolation behind to save lives. What is your opinion on how this war on terror ended, and how do you feel as a 24-year retired U.S. Army Sergeant First Class on what you witnessed when we pulled out of Afghanistan?
Well, that's a loaded question because, me, myself, as someone who served 24 years, and everyone else who served, I can't speak for everybody.
No, we're speaking for Scott Fredenburg right now.
Yeah.
And you're speaking as a civilian. You're no longer in the military. You are a veteran champion in Nebraska, and simply asking what your opinion is on what we witnessed on that botched withdrawal in Afghanistan that claimed the lives of, I believe, 13 U.S. men and women, service members, I believe 11 Marines, a sailor, and a soldier. That did not need to happen. And then, soon after that, Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Scheller came out and started calling out, the higher echelons, if you will, of the brass in our country, and really began that conversation on our, our higher, our generals and, all the higher folks that are running the DOD, again, at the highest levels. And, there was a lot of accountability there that was never had. There was a lot of justice that still hasn't been had. And, I don't ask this question as often as I should, and really just getting the opinions of folks like you that were over there, that have served, that have lost good men and women, and just getting their opinions on this. I think it's important to talk about.
Yeah. Okay. So my opinion on this is I 100% agree that the whole pullout in that mission was botched, and it, for several reasons. One, all the interpreters and all the people, all the third country nationals that we had working for us over all these years of all these different wars, whether it be Iraq, whether it be Afghanistan, what type of message does that send to them that, we work with them for so long, we depend on them for so long, but yet when it comes time for an administration to say it's time for us to go, we just leave them high and dry. I think that's absolutely the wrong answer as far as that goes. You had so many relationships that were built between U.S. forces and these third country nationals. You think about just since that pullout alone, there are so many more veterans who are probably struggling with their PTSD and mental health because of this. It's unfortunate that we did the pullout the way we did. I mean, I don't see the big picture as far as I don't understand why we ever gave up Bagram Air Base, the most secure place in Afghanistan as far as that goes. You know, if you're going to do a pull out from that location as compared to, you know, where small little airstrip where we did as far as that goes. Another thing that I had heard a podcast one time, I don't even recall the name of the podcast, where they interviewed a sniper who had eyes on the guy who set off the IED device that killed all those individuals that day. He had eyes on. He requested over and over to his chain of command, said he had a shot. He thought that this person fit the characteristics and the details of a specific person, called it up, and they denied his request to take out the person who actually ignited the IED as far as that goes. So that to me is, you know, that's a big failure on the chain of command's part as far as that goes. So
Sure. Yeah, that's why I was saying, you know, when Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Scheller did something that we very rarely seen. I've never seen it personally, but call out again generals at the highest levels of the DOD from his battalion headquarters in Camp Lejeune was quite the courageous act. Of course, it broke the UCMJ, you know, but, you know, sometimes at the end of the day, you got to do things that aren't just right or legal, you know, but again, he was carrying out his, you know, constitutional, you know, promise, you know, and, you know, he saw something that wasn't right and he called it out. And, you know, yes, he's no longer a Marine now, but what he did, I think it really ignited a conversation, and it's a conversation that we need to have in order to prevent this from ever happening again. And I'm not getting political here. I don't care what administration would ever do a thing like that, and I would be against it. Because that's just not how we do things. And then, of course, all the assets that we left behind, you know, so on and so forth, that, you know, to me, it's just make it make sense. You know, that's exactly what I think. But, you know, like you said, you know, we let down the Afghan people, you know, probably an entire generation of Afghans, you know, that were on their way to becoming, you know, a thriving nation. We had spent a lot of time there, you know, training, you know, their military, and then boom, overnight, you know, they were taken right back, and you know, now they're leading the people right down the same path that they were before we got there, you know, and you know, again, it's just going to reignite this firestorm, if you will, and it's going to end up costing more lives. And at the end of the day, it doesn't need to be like this. And you know, it's just, you know, it's a sad state of affairs, but it is what it is, right? I mean, that's, you know, at the end of the day, it is what it is. And now we need to, you know, to try to do better and try to fix it and learn from our mistakes, and hope that it never happens again. And, you know, keep our military and our readiness and our fitness where it needs to be. Now, speaking of fitness, you look like a pretty fit guy, man. You freaking bodybuilder or what?
Actually, I 2 years ago I competed in a powerlifting competition.
Okay.
I have been on stage once as a guest poser many years ago, probably 13 years ago as a bodybuilder. But yeah, I competed in my first powerlifting event 2 years ago for Cornhusker State Games. In my class, I took second place, so it's pretty.
How tall are you?
Interesting experience. What's that?
How tall are you?
5'9".
5'9", and how much you weigh?
Right now, about 238.
Man, he's got it down to the 8. 238.
Yeah, I know.
238.3. So you are the president. Now we get to the fun part. You are the president and founder of Ruck-It Up for Warriors. You guys are out doing a lot of great work, and it certainly hasn't gone unnoticed. You were put on my radar by a mutual friend, and thought you should be recognized for the work that you're doing and the contribution that you're doing to the veteran community, to do your part to save lives, to do your part to increase the quality of life for our nation's veterans. What inspired you to wake up one day and say, you know what? I'm going to found and I am going to create Ruck-It Up for Warriors.
Okay, so this whole thing started last year in March. I retired in 2014, and I still had contact with like probably about a handful of my veteran battle buddies and stuff like that, and I was just looking at a Facebook veterans page. I don't recall even which one it was. And I ran across a Facebook post for a 48-mile ruck march challenge being sponsored by Mission 22. Mission 22, if you do or do not know, they're one of the top national veteran suicide group there is out there as far as that goes. Bring in millions of dollars per year to fight veteran suicide and mental health and PTSD and stuff like that. So, so anyways, I decided I was going to compete in this challenge. On Facebook, they had this thing all set up to where you could seek donations on Facebook, and I set a goal for $500 for the month of March to be able to put in 48 miles. And my goal was to do it with a minimum of 22 pounds on my pack. And I used a weighted vest rather than the rucksack itself, because that's what I bought, and I didn't have a rucksack. So I was like, I'll just get myself, I ended up wearing 30 pounds during the month, and I raised $578. So I beat the goal of 500. And I'll tell you, I ended up doing 51 miles, $578. But I will tell you that each and every mile that I was out there, I kept asking myself, hey, if I can if I could beat my goal of $500 during this month, of just asking my friends and family members to help donate for this cause because it means something to me, then what could I do? Am I saving, how many lives am I saving? Or how many hours of veteran mental health counseling, PTSD counseling does my donation pay for, the donations that I'm bringing in? Then I started asking myself, if I put a lot more effort into this, what if I started a veteran nonprofit organization related around ruck marching? How many people could I pull in to help support the cause? How many veterans who maybe have lost base with their veteran community since they have got out and got back from these conflicts overseas? How many people could I pull in to make them feel like they're part of an organization, that means something to them, to help improve their mental health as far as that goes? So there I was. I thought of all these things, and then July of 2022, so not even a year ago, I filed my paperwork, got approved through the state of Nebraska, and we are now a 501c3 full nonprofit organization.
Where can people support you in your cause?
Okay, so right now we just have our Facebook page, Ruck-It Up for Warriors. I don't exactly know what the ad is as far as that goes. Ruck-It Up for Warriors.
Yeah, I've got that up on the screen right now. And folks, it is a 4 with no dash with Warriors. So it's Ruck-It and then Up 4 Warriors, and they're on Facebook. Now, what was your process like in filing your 501c3 and becoming a nonprofit?
Okay, so my process was real easy. I found myself a attorney who deals with that, and I had her deal with it and tell me what I had to fill out as far as that goes. It was rather simple. It was out of pocket, all the costs initially, because we didn't have any money in our account or anything like that. We didn't even have an account for quite a while. Everything was out of pocket to file all the initial paperwork. It was probably about, I think it was like $1,500, I think, to file the paperwork, which I've never got reimbursed for or anything like that. And, I really don't care. I just wanted to get the organization started as far as that goes. So you filed to do that, and then you have to file a different form. I'm not sure what that is, to actually get your 501c3 status as far as that goes, to officially be considered a nonprofit organization as far as that goes. So it was, like I say, a 2-part little process as far as that goes. Now to build the account up and start growing an account to be able to do things more for advertising and all that goes, I first started out by designing like those little headbands that the runners wear. And I'm not sure what the name of the organization was, but I started selling those, so what I would do is I advertised those, and I had like about 25 to 30 people who wanted to buy, and advertised them at whatever price for a donation. And I said, hey, you can either donate this cost or feel free to donate more if you want. And I ended up bringing in about $500 as far as that goes, which allowed me to start making t-shirts and things like that too. This Ruck-It Up 4Warriors is our actual logo. And, so I put out 3 t-shirts, a black, a gray, and a OD green color, all with different sayings on the back of them, and started selling those. And so that's why I did basically headbands and push t-shirts to start getting money to start advertising as far as that goes, to go from there.
Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it right here from Scott Fredenburg, the native from Lincoln, Nebraska. You never know where life can take you if you stand up and get off the sidelines and put yourself in the game. Put yourself in that stadium and say, I am going to challenge myself. I'm going to do something with Mission 22. And it was never supposed to morph into what it has. You raised $578. You would go on with this over 50-mile ruck. You came back and said, I'm going to begin. And that's exactly what you have with Ruck-It Up 4Warriors. So you never know, guys, what a simple challenge or going out on a ruck march may even do for you, because it's definitely changed the trajectory of your life and what you're doing now in your local community in Lincoln, Nebraska. And like I said, I mean, I'm down here in Houston, and I grew up in SoCal, Colorado, and I know of a ton of veteran organizations out there, but I don't personally have any, connections to Nebraska veterans groups until I had Jason Steiner on last week with Hero Stock, and now I've got you on from Nebraska. So it's very good to start to, network with folks like you in other states, that we can come together even further as a veteran community and help, different veterans groups in different states, and, who may need help, what assets do we have in this state? Because let's face it, we can't rely on the government to take care of the veteran community. We take care of our own. We police our own. And again, that's why we have so many of these veteran nonprofits out there. So we don't need to rely on anybody else or the government or anything else to help those veterans. We could step in, engage immediately, interact in a positive way, and save lives. Folks, I need to take a quick break here for 30 seconds to give a shout out to today's show sponsor, Dan Francis, our great friend in Canyon City, Colorado, with the Mountain Man brand. That's right, the Mountain Man brand. Get your Mountain Man gear today. He's got hats, shirts, and so much more. I even got my own hat right here. Look at that. MM with some mountains, Mountain Man. That is some pretty good stuff. The website, mtnmn.com. mtnmn.com. You will find a wide variety of products on that website, mtnmn.com. Check them out online today. That's the Mountain Man brand. Another great thing about my great friend Dan Francis is he is on the executive board of directors for the Military Rodeo Cowboy Association. So if you're a veteran or if you are active duty military and you rodeo, go to mrcarodeo.org and sign up for a rodeo today. Go out and compete. Go out and ride for the brand. Go out and ride for the branch of service that you serve in and represent every single day for this country. Go to mrcarodeo.org. And also, don't forget, it is rodeo season, folks. Get your complete rodeo guide and schedule. And you can also help this great cause by donating today. Once again, mrcarodeo.org. That is mrcarodeo.org. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with Scott Fredenburg, U.S. Army retired Sergeant First Class and the founder and president of Ruck-It Up for Warriors. Scott, how many events do you guys do or have done up to date since your inception in July of 2022?
Okay, so let me think about this for a second. Okay, so I'll just go from the beginning. Our first event it's just basically our Ruck-It Up for Warriors kickoff event. That was on September 24th of 2022. That was basically Frontier Harley Davidson. We did cornhole. We had food vendors there. We had a small ruck competition to where we did 22 laps around the building. Our second one was a spur of the moment event, which I put together. It started on October 1st, and it was kind of veered towards the Mission 22 concept. I called it Rucktoberfest, and it was a month-long independent challenge for all my friends and family members and people who followed the organization. And it was just a straight-up 50-mile challenge for the month of October, and that was geared towards my friends and family members going out and getting pledges per mile on what they would do for the full month of October. So after that, then we had a comedy show, which we hosted at a place here in town called Rosie's Bar and Grill. So what that was is I had 4 comics and a host. I had 3 of those comics were actually veterans. One of them was a USMC vet. One of them was one of my battle buddies, and one was another Army vet. And that was February 25th, I believe it was. We also had one of my battle buddies commit suicide in March of 2020, and we're doing an honorary ruck march in his name every single year. Our first one was,
what's his name?
Sergeant Kevin Payday Jurasic. So we did a honorable ruck march in his name on, I think it was March the 18th. So it's just about 2 months ago. That drew only about 20 people, 15 to 20 people to march, but his entire family was there in support of it and everything like that. And like I say, I plan on doing this event every year, and I would love it if there's other people who have witnessed this type of pain by having a family member or a personal friend commit suicide, they can come out and support this event as far as that goes. So that's what we have done to date. We do have a couple other, well, at least one more event lined up here in the near future. We are going to be part of Hero Stock, like you mentioned. We are actually doing a ruck march starting at the site of Hero Stock, going out like about 3.5 miles and coming back in and ending at Hero Stock. So basically, we'll do our ruck march, and then we are going to end the day out and hang out with the Hero Stock crowd. We're going to have a booth and table there to pass on information for people who are not familiar with our brand as far as that goes. That's on September the 9th.
September 9th. Yes. And that is is it in Ashland, Nebraska, if I remember correctly?
Yes, Ashland,
Holy
Nebraska.
cow, man. I can't remember shit from like 5 minutes ago sometimes, but all of a sudden I'm like, wait, Ashland, so I don't remember the name of the steakhouse, but I remember it was in Ashland, Nebraska for Hero Stock. And that is a very, very unique idea that Jason had. And he's lucky to have folks like you that, you guys could team up. And I love seeing it. There are so many veteran groups out there that are in competition with each other, and they should actually be helping each other out, which is why I love having, good veteran nonprofits on this show, so I can raise you guys up, get the exposure out there that you need to be successful. But look, first and foremost, I want to send my sincerest condolences to you and Sergeant Rossick's family. There are so many of him out there in our country every single day that are battling and fighting from the wounds of war. And, it's very, very real. And unfortunately, I've been associated with many others as well that have tragically taken their own lives where they didn't see any other way out. So what you're doing is truly honorable and it's admirable, because I know it works because I've been to so many of these veteran events. And, a lot of the times when you see veterans go out on these rucks, or if they go deep sea fishing, or if they go to a religious based camp, literally there's a 501c3 out there for any veteran, any flavor, anything that you can think of. They have it. Equine therapy, shooting, archery, hunting, four-wheeling, adrenaline therapy, you name it, they've got it. And that is for veterans. So it's not like, well, I'm not really into horses, but I'll go here anyways. No, guys. There's something for everybody out there to when you get out there, you can be you, and you can just let it all hang out, and you can hang out with like-minded people who share the same hobbies and the same life skills and lifestyle that you do. Again, you may like to go out on rucks. Another guy might like to go, do adrenaline therapy and go 100 miles an hour in an off-road, race vehicle on the desert floor. There's something for everybody out there to help save lives. And folks, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. And you guys are pre-gaming. You guys are pre-gaming for Hero Stock. And you say cornhole is going to be one of the games that you guys play out there. Well, I tell you what, man, and I know this for a fact, cornhole just hits different when you're in Nebraska, in the heart of Cornhusker country. I mean, would you agree with that?
I would agree with that for sure.
Down here in Texas, hey, man, I got cornhole boards, man. But when we're in Nebraska or whatever it is and you're playing, it's like, man, you got the cornfield right there and you got your bags right here. So if your bean bag or your corn bag or whatever it may be in those bags, if it breaks, you just go over there and you husk off some of that old ethanol corn, the stuff that says do not eat, all over Nebraska, and you can make your own bags, throw a little bit of powder on them, man, and you're just going for the you're just splashing, you're just splashing all day, man. I love it.
That's right.
So, how many people are you expecting to join you in September for the pregame, if you will, for the ruck that you're doing for Hero Stock?
I really have no idea how many to expect. I just know that when you hold a first event, you really never know as far as that goes. Like when I had the Ruck March, my battle buddy, 2 months ago for this, you don't really know until the day shows up. But what you do hope is that each year there's enough by word of mouth that gets passed on that, more people will join the movement every year. Moving forward, the event can get bigger and the event can get bigger as far as that goes, because the more people you have involved in any of these events, the better chance that a struggling veteran could hear about something, or the better involvement from your local community as far as that goes. So, you know,
Yeah, when I was talking about that, there's a flavor for every veteran out there. I had lost my train of thought, but what I was going to say, is that when these veterans show up to these events, a lot of the times, if you study their mannerisms and their body language, they show up sad, depressed. A lot of the times they're not talking, they're in the corner. And then all of a sudden, an hour or two goes by, 3 hours, 5 hours, and they're a different person. They're smoking and joking. They're laughing. They're having a great time. They're sharing in camaraderie with their fellow veterans, and they're partaking in an activity that perhaps they have never done before or haven't done in a very long time. Again, to get them out of that comfort zone, or they may be just working this 9-to-5 job or whatever, or even more, some 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. stuff. And they never have time for themselves. And they're just unhappy, and they're not living the life that they were intended to live. And again, you take them out of that depressed, anxiety-riddled state, and you put them around like-minded people. That right there is always the beginning to something new, and to stand up and start something. And you never know the lives that may be changed or the lives that may be touched at just a simple event like going out and doing a ruck march in Ashland, Nebraska, before Hero Stock starts. And that's what it's really all about, is getting together and sharing in the camaraderie, telling this, sharing a drink, a burger, playing some cornhole. Again, it's the stories that they tell. My good friend Scotty Hastings, great song that he sings. I'm a big fan. And if you listen to that song and the words to that, that's exactly what it's all about. And that's exactly what these nonprofits are doing across the country, folks, when it comes to healing our nation's veterans. Now, do you have any great, memorable stories from when you served that you could share with us today that may come to mind?
Well, one does come to mind.
Okay.
So we were on this mission. During my second Iraq tour. It was a detainee air transport mission. Okay, so this mission, we would go pick up detainees from the detention facility when it was time for them to be released back into their sectors that they're captured in. And we would take them on buses, bring them to the Basra airstrip. And then from there, we'd load them up on aircraft there, and we'd fly with them to Baghdad and drop them off, and then we'd go back. So one night during one of our flights, we some of us would sit up on like the back lift of the aircraft there. They just throw a cart. Go ahead.
What plane?
I believe they were C-130s.
Oh, okay.
So we'd sit on the back of the aircraft. Aircraft would go up like that, and we'd just sit along across here, and they'd have like an Air Force strap that would come across our waist, and that's what we'd have on during takeoff and landing as far as that goes. So we were going to an airstrip one night in Taji in Iraq, and this landing strip was only a couple hundred yards long as far as that goes. So it's the first time we were ever landing there as opposed to Baghdad International Airport. So they told us before we started this mission that it was going to be a super fast. They're going to land, and it's basically they're slamming on the brakes to get this bird to stop, and otherwise we're going to run out of airstrip to be able to land on. So imagine this. Aircraft coming to a fast halt, and you've seen the movie Cliffhanger of Sylvester Stallone. How he's hanging on one as far as that goes. So this bird comes to this screeching halt, and I had to grab underneath on this like Air Force strap, and I was like hanging on so I wouldn't go crashing down. We had all the detainees sat in the middle, like down these rows. They were blindfolded. they had their restraints on as far as that goes. Full restraints, arm shackles, leg shackles, waistband. And as this bird stopped, there I was, just basically hanging from this so I wouldn't go flying and crashing into them. Well, two of my battle buddies, Chad Weber's, Jesse Cunningham, he's a vice president of this other nonprofit called Wheels for Warriors USA. I'm not sure if you've heard of them or not. But anyway, so Chad and Jesse didn't realize that they could grab onto this Air Force strap. They were worried more about a set of loose restraints, and they was sliding under and crashed into the detainees. It was great. There I was saving my life, and there they are, rolling up into Stinky Haji. It was great.
In 1997, I was in Korea, and we took a 141 there, and we landed, and we went about 30 yards past the runway. So we were in the grass area, and had just rained, so it was kind of a little bit muddy. So we had to get off that bird, and it was completely overloaded. I had a ton of Marines. It was for Operation Ulchi Focused Lens in 97 that we did Korea, Thailand, and those were the two countries that I was in and a part of. But so I definitely know what it's like to kind of overrun a runway, if you will, or not have the brakes to put on. And I mean, completely overloaded. And the reason why I was asking what plane you were on a C-130, and those are smaller birds, of course. But my brother was a crew chief on the C-17s around the time that you were, in Iraq. Because he was stop loss as well, because he had a lot of, I think he was one of the first or second classes through that Boeing aircraft school in the Air Force. The C-17, I think, is the best bird in the military. It's amazing what that airplane can do. And it's amazing the type of missions and the operations that the C-17 has been a part of. Now, before we wrap this up, your tattoos are screaming at me. Pretty impressive work there. Can you show us some of your tattoos? And
okay, so this one here this is my newest one. I kind of just piece these together as far as this goes. Only God will judge our enemies. This was an initial. This is the very first one I had right here. This is just our MP crest with some black work that was around it. I have all my combat patches. As far as that goes, I have U.S. Army. There is an eagle's head that comes here. I still have to do a little bit of finish work. The tattoo artist is working on doing some feathers and stuff like that. As far as that goes, other side we have just a guy there, silhouettes of different soldiers. And across here I have my Afghanistan, Kosovo, or Afghanistan, Iraq, and Kosovo campaign medals as far as that goes. U.S. flag, and then my sergeant first class rank as far as that goes. So beautiful.
Man, that's some good stuff, man. I love the creativity and how you kind of pulled it all together. I mean, you were destined, to be the founder of Ruck-It Up for Warriors, man. I mean, definitely. I mean, you got it written all over you. I mean, that right there. I mean, that's a motto right there, man. I mean, I'm getting ready to go out and do some push-ups when I get done with this one.
So my tattoo artist was a Canadian citizen. So she has a shop here in Lincoln, Nebraska. So,
well, I mean, I guess it really doesn't matter what citizen you are, as long as you're an artist, right?
Right, that's right. So,
so what do you got going on for the rest of the day, man?
My son has a baseball game tonight, so I'm gonna try to finish up work a little early.
Yeah.
We have to travel to Fremont, Nebraska, which is kind of about 45 minutes away from Lincoln as far as that goes. So had to hurry up and pick up the kids from school and get ready to go to baseball.
Yeah, I do the same thing. Baseball with my kids.
Yep. So
Yeah. I live for that stuff. Totally.
I
Well,
love
listen,
it.
Scott, man, look, thank you so much for joining us today. We sincerely appreciate everything you have done and continue to do in the military and veteran community. Your service, sacrifice, and dedication to our great nation is truly admirable, and I wish you all the best in this new endeavor of yours with Ruck-It Up for Warriors. And I will help in any way I can to help get the word out. If you have an extra T-shirt, send it to me. I'm a 2XL, and I'll proudly wear it on this podcast, as I have with a lot of other nonprofits that I do believe in, to see if we can't get you some more engagement and to get folks, to generously, open their wallet and donate to a good cause that will ultimately save lives and put on more of these functions with the veteran community that you are partaking in Lincoln, Nebraska, and surrounding cities. Folks, don't forget to subscribe to the program. We are on Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Facebook, and Twitter. Folks, always remember to stay inspired, stay encouraged, stay motivated, and always stay in the fight. Until next time, for Today with Tally podcast, this is Brian Tally. Good night, Semper Fi, and God bless.